to the Australian election, and let's keep the focus on that now. Why? Because voting starts tomorrow. There are 12 days until the general election and the result will be known, but tomorrow is the first opportunity that Australians will get to vote. Now, we know that about half of all people will vote early. I've got a feeling because we are in between public holidays, there might be a bit of a surge in those past few days. In the first few days, there are a huge number of people that have already made their decision. There will be those that will wait until the very last minute. They will either make their choices based off a worldview or just who they think is going to win. That's the joy of compulsory voting. But I wanted to take this opportunity, as we now are the night before the first vote could be cast, to say vote early. If you have a strong belief one way or the other, vote early. Nothing's going to change in the next couple of weeks. We know what this government has been for the past 3 years. We know what the alternative would be for the next 3 years. And I've got to say, let's look back at what was promised versus the reality, and I think the choice becomes pretty clear. Remember what the promise was at the start of this government, that a Labor government would lower the cost of living. The reality, of course, is that the living standards of Australians have fallen back to the levels of the 1950s. 1.6 million homes are in mortgage stress because of 12 interest rate rises. 2 out of 3 cannot afford rent. 3 million people are on the verge of homelessness. 3.7 million households will run out of food this week. 30,000 businesses have gone bust. Behind them, workers, at the heart of them, people who perhaps lost everything backing themselves. The government that promised that a lower cost of living would be the case has delivered the highest supermarket prices you've ever paid. Labor, as a government, has decided to increase taxes on alcohol, cigarettes and petrol to the highest levels ever. The forecast is not for a budget deficit just of the next 4 years, but for the next 40 years. Australia is in $1.2 trillion worth of debt. Remember, at the previous election, they promised that electricity would be cheaper. They even put a number on that figure that we've all heard so many times before the last election, but so few after it.
Reducing power prices by $275, $275 a year. There'll be a reduction for households of $275.
This time, he won't even say just how low your power price will go as they get ready to spend hundreds of billions of dollars more, moving from the system that worked to the one that they hope will work into the future.
You and Chris Bowen keep saying that renewables are the cheapest form of power. When will we see our power bills come down?
They are. Well, what we know is that renewables are the cheapest form of power, not because of what we say, but because of what the Australian Energy Market Operator says.
So when do the bills come down?
And what the market is delivering.
All right, just stick with your plan, Mr Albanese. When will the bills come down?
Under our plan, we know that renewables are the cheapest form of power. Gas is now $13. It was $30.
And when does it get cheaper?
When we came off, 13 is cheaper than 30.
When do we see the bills come down?
Well, what we need to do is to roll out renewables, make sure there's energy security.
The case for change as well is the suffering of cost of living. The single biggest issue for the past 3 years, one that has changed people's lives, one that has driven people into poverty, as many more are scared of that poverty. At the very time when you were feeling that, the Treasurer and potential next Prime Minister of Australia, should this one be returned, Jim Chalmers, along with Anthony Albanese, well, they made a decision. That decision was to take $1,500 as an automatic tax return off 10 million workers. Instead, at the time when they decided to take that money away, they spent more than $400 million on a referendum to change the Constitution. This could have happened quickly, could have happened early, but instead this was the entirety of the political conversation for an entire year. What would $411 million have done to the people who, among others, try to offer food to those that are running out or housing to those who are about to lose? Remember what those who thought 60-40 at the start for yes would be 60-40 at the end, that you were a dinosaur or a dickhead if you didn't agree with the change that was in place. This is a government who both through its communications minister and Prime Minister, tried on multiple occasions to introduce a law to censor the internet, to financially penalise companies that would not take down what the government determined not to be the truth. If you live on the land or care about its future, remember the law of nature positive. This would be something like the heritage laws in Western Australia on steroids. The promise is for it to come back in a re-elected Albanese government.